The man stuck his head inside the refrigerator, greedily scooping up the crushed ice and shoveling it into his mouth, appearing to relish every moment. He then gathered the remaining ice crystals and slurped them up like a starving man inhaling jelly, even licking the shelves clean of any frosty residue. Only then did the man let out a long sigh of relief. Suddenly, however, he burst into tears inside the fridge, as if he had suffered some great injustice. But the man quickly pulled himself together. In reality, he was a burglar who had been trapped inside the luxury apartment for 2 full days and nights. If he didn't find a way out soon, he might not starve to death, but he would surely die of thirst. However, escaping was no easy feat. The penthouse was located on the 60th floor with soundproof, shatterproof glass installed throughout the entire unit. Apart from the locked main door, there was no other way out. The man felt around the door, realizing it was made entirely of solid wood. He immediately ran his fingertips along every crevice, identifying the weakest points, and began frantically chiseling away with his pocket knife. If he could just create a hole, he'd be able to open the door from the outside. Soon, the man had chipped through the outer panel, exposing the relatively softer inner layer. His confidence surged as he hastened his efforts. However, as time ticked by, the damaged central air conditioning system grew increasingly hot. The man was drenched in sweat, and the moisture he had absorbed from the fridge quickly evaporated. He was so unbearably thirsty that he set down his knife and began searching the apartment for water. But ever since triggering the alarm, the entire unit's water supply had been cut off. Not a single drop flowed from any of the faucets, including the toilet. Staring at the unflushed toilet, the man hesitated for a long while, but ultimately lacked the courage to drink from it. He crawled into the corner of the living room where potted plants were kept and dug out the automatic watering pipes. However, upon twisting them open, he discovered they too were bone dry. Finally, the man set his sights on the living room aquarium. He tentatively dipped his finger into the tank, brought the water to his lips, and took a strong suck. The bitter, astringent salt water was completely undrinkable. Left with no choice, the man had to grit his teeth and endure the hunger and thirst as he continued chiseling at the door. Suddenly, the tip of his blade struck something, producing a dull thud. Somewhat startled, he hastily felt around with his fingers. It didn't feel like wood. The man sensed something was amiss and urgently stabbed at it with his knife. In the end, he despairingly discovered that the door concealed a layer of thick, sturdy steel plate. Without specialized tools, opening it would be impossible. In his desperation, he lay dejectedly on the coffee table, attempting to use his walkie-talkie to call his accomplices for help, but they had long since abandoned him. He called out intermittently throughout the entire night, but no response ever came. So, will the man ultimately be rescued?